What if the seeker, the path, and the destination were never separate? What if the wine that intoxicates the heart, the cup that holds it, and the cupbearer who serves it are all one reality? Ibn Arabi invites us into a vision where the deepest, mystical truth is not found outside us, but revealed when the illusion of separation finally dissolves. You are the wine, the cup, and the cupbearer. This is not poetry meant to decorate the mind, but a truth meant to shatter it. The one who hears these words with the ear of ego will be confused, but the one who listens with the ear of unveiling will recognize something long forgotten. Existence is not divided as you imagine. The divisions you see are veils placed by perception, not boundaries placed by reality. When the Gnostics speak of wine, they do not speak of a liquid, but of divine knowledge that intoxicates the heart and frees it from the prison of form. This wine is the self-disclosure of God, pouring endlessly into existence. Yet ask yourself, where is this wine poured? Into a cup. And what is this cup? It is the human heart, prepared through awareness, humility, and remembrance to receive what cannot be contained by the heavens or the earth. But then comes the deeper secret. Who pours the wine? The cupbearer appears as another, yet in truth, it is the same reality revealing itself through another face. You imagine God as the giver and yourself as the receiver. This is the first station, necessary but incomplete. Ibn Arabi teaches that, at a higher unveiling, the giver and receiver are seen as the names of one reality. The cupbearer is God as the manifest, the cup is God as the receptive, and the wine is God as the known. When this is witnessed, multiplicity collapses into unity without denying the forms in which it appears. Do not misunderstand this as a claim of personal divinity, for ego has no place here. The you that is wine, cup, and cupbearer is not the limited self made of desires and fears. It is the true self, the divine trust breathed into Adam, the mirror polished enough to reflect the real without distortion. When the ego claims this truth, it becomes disbelief. When the self is annihilated, it becomes realization. The cup does not boast that it holds the wine, nor does the wine boast that it fills the cup. Each knows its place by surrender. Likewise, the realized one does not claim union. Union claims him. He becomes silent, because language breaks under the weight of what is witnessed. He serves the wine because he knows it is not his, and yet he knows there is nothing but the in the language of unveiling. The separation between the giver, the gift, and the receiver exists only at the level of perception, not at the level of reality. Ibn Arabi teaches that what appears to be a transaction between two beings is in truth a single movement of the divine, knowing itself through its own manifestations. The mind insists on division because it is trained to see relationships in terms of subject and object, but the heart, once awakened, recognizes that every exchange is a self-disclosure of the one acting through many forms. When a person believes that God gives and the servant receives, this belief is not false, but it is incomplete. It belongs to the station of duality, where reverence is preserved through distance. In this station, the servant bows, prays, and waits, imagining that grace descends from above while he remains below. Yet Ibn Arabi does not stop here, for he sees that this distance itself is a veil meant to be lifted at the time of maturity. When unveiling occurs, the servant discovers that the hand receiving was moved by the same reality as the hand giving, and that the gift itself is nothing other than the presence of the giver appearing in a form that can be known. The wine of knowledge is not poured from one existence into another as water is poured from one vessel to the next. Rather, it is the divine revealing a face of itself to itself through the mirror of the human heart. The cupbearer is the name of God that manifests as generosity and bestowal. The wine is the name of God that manifests as knowledge and sweetness. And the cup is the name of God that manifests as receptivity and containment. These are not three realities, but three perspectives within a single act of being. To see them as separate is to remain at the level of form. To see them as one is to witness meaning. This unity does not erase responsibility or devotion. nor does it collapse worship into arrogance. On the contrary, it deepens humility, because the knower realizes that nothing belongs to him, not even his knowing. The gift cannot be claimed, because the claimant is also a gift. When the servant says, "I have received," he speaks in the language of convention. When he sees with the eye of realization, he knows that receiving is simply another name for the divine giving itself a place to appear. Ibn Arabi often emphasizes that God is known through his names, and every relationship in existence is governed by these names. The giver and receiver are names, not independent beings. When generosity appears, it requires an apparent recipient, just as forgiveness requires an apparent sinner. Yet both sides of the relationship are held within the same divine economy. The real discloses itself as the one who gives and the one who receives, so that the fullness of its names may be known. Without this play of relationship, knowledge would remain hidden, and love would have no mirror in which to recognize itself. The mistake of the ego is to hear this truth and immediately place itself at the center, imagining that the personal self has become divine. Ibn Arabi warns that this is the most subtle form of ignorance, for the personal self is precisely what must be seen through. Unity is not achieved by elevating the ego, but by recognizing that it never possessed independent existence to begin. Heart, in Ibn Arabi's understanding, is not a physical organ nor a sentimental center of emotion, but a subtle reality capable of turning in every direction, reflecting whatever faces it is shown. Because of this capacity to turn and transform, it becomes the only vessel vast enough to receive divine self-disclosure. The intellect defines, limits, and separates, but the heart embraces without restriction, and for this reason is described by the knowers as the true cup prepared to hold the wine of God's knowledge. Divine self-disclosure is not a single event that occurs once and then ends. It is continuous, renewed at every moment. God is always revealing himself, yet most hearts remain unaware because they are filled with other contents. A cup already full cannot receive more wine, no matter how generous the cupbearer. Ibn Arabi emphasizes that the preparation of the heart is not achieved by accumulation of information, but by emptiness, refinement, and receptivity. The heart must be freed from rigid attachments and fixed self-images so that it may take on the color of whatever is poured into it. When the heart is purified, it does not impose its own shape upon the divine disclosure. Instead, it becomes transparent, allowing the wine to be tasted as it truly is. This is why Ibn Arabi speaks of the heart as a mirror rather than a container. The clearer the mirror, the more faithfully it reflects what appears within it. If the mirror is clouded by desire, fear, or pride, the reflection becomes distorted, and the knower mistakes his own projections for divine truth. True knowledge begins when the heart learns to remain still in the presence of what is revealed. The cup that receives the wine does not choose the wine, it simply receives what is poured. In the same way, the realized heart does not demand specific experiences or spiritual states. It surrenders to the wisdom of the moment, knowing that every disclosure is perfectly suited to the capacity of the receiver. Ibn Arabi teaches that God reveals himself according to the preparedness of the heart, meaning that each person tastes the wine differently, not because the wine changes, but because the cups differ. No two hearts are identical, and therefore no two unveilings are the same. This understanding dissolves spiritual comparison and envy. When one heart receives a certain sweetness and another receives a different intensity, neither is superior nor inferior. Each is receiving precisely what it can bear. The danger lies not in limitation, but in refusal. A heart that hardens itself around a single understanding closes the door to further disclosure. The most complete heart, according to Ibn Arabi, is the one that remains endlessly receptive, able to recognize God in every form without being confined by any form. The wine of divine knowledge intoxicates, but it does not remove awareness. It deepens it, unlike ordinary intoxication, which clouds perception. This intoxication sharpens presence and dissolves forgetfulness. The heart that drinks this wine becomes awake to the divine signs in every moment, seeing meaning where others see randomness. This awareness is not dramatic or loud, it is quiet, steady, and rooted in certainty. The heart does not claim mastery over the truth, it rests within it. To be a vessel of divine self-disclosure is not to escape the world, but to see the world as a continuous revelation. Every encounter, every joy, every loss becomes another pour of the wine, another chance for the heart to recognize the one who is always revealing himself. The cup remains the heart, the wine remains the knowledge, and the pouring never ceases, only the readiness of the vessel changes. Annihilation of the ego in Ibn Arabi's vision does not mean the destruction of personality or the disappearance of human function, it means the collapse of false independence. The ego is not an enemy because it exists, but because it claims ownership, authorship, and separation. It says I know, I act, and I possess, without realizing that its knowing, acting, and possessing are all borrowed movements of a deeper reality. True knowing is born only when this claim quietly falls away. At the beginning of the path, the seeker assumes that he is walking toward God as one walks toward a distant place. He strives, disciplines himself, accumulates practices, and refines belief, imagining that progress is achieved through effort alone. Ibn Arabi does not deny the necessity of effort, but he reveals its hidden purpose. Effort exhausts the ego until it can no longer maintain the illusion of control. When striving reaches its limit, surrender begins, and in that surrender the veil thins. Ego annihilation occurs not through force, but through recognition. The seeker suddenly sees that every step he thought he took toward God was already moved by God. Every moment of insight, every tear of repentance, every breath of remembrance was never self-generated. This realization does not inflate the self, it empties it. The seeker no longer sees himself as the origin of his spiritual life, but as the place where divine life becomes visible. At this point, the cupbearer is recognized. Before, the seeker believed that divine knowledge came to him from outside, as a gift occasionally granted. Now he sees that the one pouring the wine was present in every moment, disguised as circumstance, teacher, hardship, and even error. The cupbearer was not standing across from him, the cupbearer was acting through him. This recognition is not conceptual, but experiential, and once tasted, it cannot be forgotten. True knowing is born when the ego steps aside and allows reality to know itself without interference. Knowledge that belongs to the ego is fragile, defensive, and eager to prove itself. Knowledge that arises after annihilation is quiet and confident, because it does not belong to anyone. Ibn Arabi describes this state as subsistent after annihilation, where the servant returns to the world but no longer stands at its center. Actions continue, speech continues, responsibilities continue, yet the sense of authorship has dissolved. In this state, the knower no longer seeks confirmation from others, nor does he fear contradiction. Praise and blame lose their sharpness, because the ego that once fed on them is no longer ruling. The heart becomes spacious, able to hold opposites without anxiety. This is why the realized one can be gentle without weakness and firm without cruelty. His certainty does not come from argument, but from presence. The most subtle danger on this path is that the ego may survive in spiritual form. It may abandon worldly pride only to clothe itself in religious superiority or mystical identity. Ibn Arabi repeatedly warns that this is a deeper veil than ordinary ignorance, because it disguises itself as light. True annihilation leaves no one behind to claim realization. When asked, the realized one speaks only out of necessity, and when silent, he is at ease. When the ego dissolves, the seeker realizes that separation was never real. The distance between servant and Lord collapses, not by removing the servant, but by revealing that servanthood itself is a mode of divine self-disclosure. The cupbearer pours, the cup receives, and the wine intoxicates. Yet all three are movements of one reality playing within its own presence. The seeker does not disappear into nothingness, he disappears into meaning. At this stage, knowledge is no longer sought as an object, it flows naturally, responding to the needs of the moment. The realized one does not store truths, he becomes a place where truth appears as needed. This is why his words may be simple yet penetrating, ordinary yet transformative. They carry no personal agenda, because the speaker has stepped aside. Annihilation is not an end, but a doorway. Beyond it lies a life lived in clarity, where actions are aligned without strain. And trust replaces calculation. The ego once asks, "What will I gain from this?" The realized heart asks nothing, because it sees that it has never been outside the giving. The cupbearer is no longer searched for, because he is recognized in every pore, in every silence, in every breath that continues to arrive without being summoned.